Hey, and how do, everybody? It's me, Jack Devine, coming to you from deep in the heart of the solar. Yikes! I got smashed in the back of the head with the SM57 or 58 first thing in the morning on Monday. That's Monday for you. Anyway, guys, how's it going? Did everybody survive Mother's Day? Oh my God, I am tired. I am tired. My wife's honeydew list. Oh my Jesus, inexhaustible. Inexhaustible. Apparently, I am a tree surgeon. I spent half the weekend up on an 8-foot ladder pruning trees in our backyard. And to congratulate myself, I decided to go and buy a cheap Stratocaster, which should be here in a couple of days. So there will be new wood in the house. She can thank her. I decided to pay myself in Stratocaster currency. So Fiesta Red inbound. Let's get this. I don't know why this thing decided to spring into action here. Sleepy time for you. Blah. Nice and calm. Hey guys, how's it going? Just really been enjoying life around here. It's all sunny and finally warm. And so I am a sap and I take my cues from ridiculous sources, and the weather being one of them. I decided to actually try to learn one of my favorite and totally unsung heroes from the Grateful Dead catalog Here Comes Sunshine, largely featured in the year 1973 and then laying dormant for 20 odd years. No revisitations until 94 is my recollection of the dusting the zombie rise from the grave for the song, albeit with a different arrangement, more of an emphasis on the opening of the tune with the a cappella version of the chorus. This is not the version that we will be talking about. The version that I will be talking about is the super sweet, hey, we just made it back alive from Europe and we're about to record our first proper album with Keith Godchow and his wife Donna, who, on album wasn't so bad, but occasionally live seemed to have problems hearing herself. She's somewhat pitchy. And but I must say that Keith is instrumental to Garcia and the boys kind of evolving and growing for that next chapter in their lives. And this song, I think, kind of was emblematic of what those shows in Europe probably taught them about being a bigger, more fulsome 5-piece or 6-piece band, as the case was with Pig, is to leave space. These guys really in 1973 started experimenting with more of a minimal approach to things, and consequently you'll see that the records have a tremendous amount of poise and ease about them. They are not the frenetic sounds of their first 3 albums, and it doesn't have anything to do with the country rock kind of lineage that you see on the 2 back-to-back sister albums, American Beauty and Working Man's. Those 2 kind of seem to be bookends. So here we are, all of a sudden, first record on Grateful Dead Records, and it's a banger. It's got some great tunes. It's got Half Step, still a crowd favorite. I love that song. Eyes of the World, arguably a lot of people just love that song the most. I totally agree with that. This song kind of a hidden gem on that album, right? And then you got Weather Report, sweet at the end, and Stella Blue for the ballad. All right. Now, Weather Report, whether you like it or not, no pun intended, is an impressive bit of composition from Bob Weir, and I am going to probably tackle that just from a completionist's perspective sometime soon. That is quite a lot to try to hear those chords, though. That opening bit is tough. So if you know it already, that's kudos to you. Maybe I'll ask you for a transcription. But anyway, idea is today we're going to talk about the hidden gem. Here Comes Sunshine. Okay, so funny enough, it starts out with this very pretty and bright theme. Yeah. So I've got kind of your typical clean, but when you dig in, it kind of jumps out a little bit, kind of Garcia sound. All right, a little echo, just one. All right, I usually round off the top end and remove the bottom end, so while playing, it just becomes like a reflection off the back wall of the room that I'm trying to create. And then there's some reverb back there. All right, and middle pickup, Strat, no big deal. All right, so song's out of C, and it kind of does that interesting thing where it's out of C with kind of like treating C as though it's the one chord, but in a way we're accessing this borrowed chord. It makes us think about, well, geez, we've got a D minor, a C, and a B flat, and an F in the tune, so, and a G. So it's like, so is the G the borrowed chord from F, or is it C? And the reality is, the analysis fails. It doesn't really want to comply with any strictures that we could see. I would say, the jam is in C mixolydian, so if you want to just say, oh, therefore it's F major, fine, but I don't really see it that way. I just see it as them shifting gears and kind of opting for that flat 7 over the jam rather than a super happy major 7 jam. That doesn't seem like it to them. So let's talk about the parts, okay? The confusing part is pretty much this rhythm on this opening lick, right? We can all hear the Ba da 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 da. Okay, and that's involving the root, the 9 with the pinky, the 3rd here on the high E string, 12th fret, and the middle finger kind of comes up and grabs the sus. And you can go, or I've heard him kind of toggle back forth. I think the kind of, okay, it's what happens on this G note at the 12th fret that is kind of elusive and hard to hear and not always repeated. And it's one of these things like, if you give a shit, then pursue this. If not, just come up here and 1, 2, 3, 4. But if you care about the little minutia, you want to get that. Okay, you'll hear that little kind of muffled G string. So we're kind of brushing through that quietly, and then da 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 da. That's really the trickiest part, is getting that rhythm together and to feel natural, okay, and not oversell it, okay. So that's the opening riff, and I'm not going to talk about the Bobby parts because I have yet to really break those down, as those won't really be my responsibility when it comes time to play them in a band. But suffice to say, Bob Weir has really grown by this point in time in their arc. Having listened to a bunch of their early records over the weekend, I really took a deep dive into their very first album, trying to figure out how to do Cream Puff War and some of these other earlier songs. It's very fun. It's more like a surf proto garage kind of energy on that album. Seems like they hadn't really found LSD quite as much as they had found speed. But whatever is the case, this is a lot different than where Bob Weir was at that time. All right, which is kind of that surfy kind of sound. This is Bob just getting a hold of the phaser for the first time and starting to mess around with some interesting kind of like chordy stuff that seems like an extension from his travels in Europe the summer prior. So, all right, so let's just look at the verse, okay? Okay, we've got the C chord, wake of the flood, laughing water, down to B flat, 49, up to D minor, boom, some little kind of My Girl kind of riff is usually done by Garcia at that point, you know. Okay, and then there's a walk. You just kind of walk up the scale. Come back to the C, right? Now you can do several different things. You could literally just play something simple like that. No harm. You can also harmonize those in tenths. Pretty slick. You can all right, now what is a tenth? Well, maybe we've talked about this in the past, and if it has eluded you, all these intervals actually are the same 2 notes, just kind of spelled out with different spaces between them. You've heard of thirds, sixths, and tenths. They're all the same 2 notes, so they function in the same way, but they have a different character to them. Tenths are this root note with 10 notes between it and the second note in the dyad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so that's 10 notes between there. Right. So that's going to be coming up like that. Now we we could hear that from this octave too. There would only be 3 notes in between. 1, 2, 3. Or we could hear it in sixths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Okay, so there it is. So we have or. Right? So I do that quite a lot, you know. So wake up the flood, laughing water, 49. Right? Get out the pants, don't just stand there dreaming. Get out the way. Get out the way. Quick little pump up to that C. And a quick little here. Now this is, I've seen this done several different ways. Anticipated, not so anticipated. Just like that. Okay, I rock, and a gem of a human too. Hey, I like all that too. Tell my wife, she gave me a hard time this weekend. Anyway, so blah, blah, blah. I don't really like that diminished. I think, honestly, I just hear this kind of approach tone. So that's boom. Oh, sorry, minor. B flat. So A flat, A flat, a little approach tone kick. All right, up into A minor. Or you can go here, B flat, C, down to G, B flat, D minor. All right, then up to F. Sunshine. You studied with me for a while, Chris the weird guy? You got me to play what? What did you say? You got me to play Kinfolk in Carolina. It's still in our set. Oh, you know, I'm sorry. I don't remember, Chris. I'm so sorry. I don't remember teaching a weird guy named Chris, but definitely taught a bunch. I mean, I think I've had about 5 or 6. A lot of Chris's, lots of Dougs. I mean, I must have taught. No worries. I'm glad you're catching this. Oh, you're in New Mexico. Okay, sure. Chris. Janari. Correct? There you go. Of course I remember you, dude. Give me a break. All right, anyway. So, yeah. All right, so here we go. Here, A minor, B flat, C, G, B flat, a little higher, D minor, F, sunshine. That's just G, F, 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 E, E, D, and then back for verse 2. Right? Same thing, okay? We make our way all the way up to that. Right, so that whole section is pretty mellow, and then it just kind of dies into a little like C7 add 9 chord that's kind of like. Right, it says. It's C major, but with that 9, it kind of gets a little ambivalent, and it opens up a lot of doors for this Mixolydian sound that they explore for quite a while usually. And it's my contention that this song kind of ultimately replaces China Cat for a little bit, and then gets swapped back for China Cat in '74. and then they do the feeling groovy stuff around there. So once that takes off, the song seems to go into hiding for 2 decades, a while. I think they may have felt bad about how they handled the vocal stack as it climbs. It's usually not well represented on the recordings. It's nice on the album. So anyway, beautiful singing on the album though. All right, so we're basically just going to groove out over this kind of C with this kind of suspended sound that floats around over C mixolydian. Until you finally kind of end up hearing Garcia doing these things where like cut he's actually kind of doing kind of what he does at the end of Easy Wind, that whole like cut to a little drum fill that happens, back to the G thing. And this is where the misinformation kind of comes out. There's a very popular and funny Grateful Dead educational content provider. But unfortunately, he's a little mixed up on the way he teaches, and he's got a big following. So I'm here to set the record straight without outing anybody. If you found any lessons that say that the chords here are going G, F, and then C major 7, B major 7, that is absolutely not correct. It is all pedaling over a constant G tone. All right, and the triads, all right, are the upper voicings are correct. It's just what he needed to remember was that those are triads from the modes over top of that G sound. So we have like a G, all right, to an F, and then we're going to be hearing kind of this an E minor triad or like a G6 sound over top of its root, and then down. Maybe the same guy that uses E and Deal. I don't know. So if it's not about pointing fingers at him so much as if clearing the air. If somebody was wondering why their version of this sounded weird, because if you took that at face value and then decided to try to solo over that, you'd be making a mistake. All right. So the idea is that we're supposed to be hearing over top of the main groove. You should be thinking about during this section. It's like a G7 groove, like a. So over top of that kind of thing, the bass is pedaling on this G sound, right? So if we're playing. Take it up another octave from here. That's all fine. Then we break back into it. back to the main theme, come back for verse 3, and then we come back again for the outro, the boom. Okay, so these are basically just following the chords. But we would want to hear this as a... Okay, so that's kind of like a G6 triad. Well, you know, and an F6 triad or a D minor, but really that's just the shape. This is functioning as an E minor chord and an F minor chord. Sorry. D minor chord, sorry. Got confused. All right, so that's just clearing up the water there in terms of extending those sounds down the modes. But with the pedal of the G and the bass, you can't think that the chords are actually going. That's not what's happening. It's all over top of like a G jam, and they're extending the whole thing to kind of encompass a G mixolydian sound. So that's... But frankly, over the top of the first two chords, I never really arpeggiated as a G7 sound into an F major 7 sound. And then I don't really do that. I just think G mixo over the whole thing, and if the keyboards are playing those little extensions, it just sounds like nice voice leading. That's really all it sounds like, just following that. Okay? And that, my friends, is really all there is to the song. The hardest part is going to be being inspired over that one chord jam for a while, the C7 sound, and then shifting gears to that G7 sound. So there isn't too much more to it. It seems like a pretty, with the exception of having to get a band to work up the background vocals, there isn't too much to worry about. There aren't a lot of words. There isn't a lot of singing. There isn't, with the exception of that chorus. So the chorus definitely being the hardest part, and communicating to your fellow bandmates what the structure of the tune is. But that should be just a chart, or maybe one or two times through the practice, and then you should be pretty golden, as long as you can communicate to each other while you play. And that's the thing. So let's talk a little bit about how I do that, because maybe you guys are wondering, like, how do you jam blindly for 20 minutes or 15 minutes and then just out of nowhere, out of thin air, magically, telepathically communicate to your bandmates that it's time to go someplace? Well, you basically have to have everybody on the same page about the fact that there is going to come a time where we shift gears, right? That we're going to pit stop for a little while here on this one sound, and then we're going to pivot to another tonality. And usually you'll end up, I know I will be definitely saying, hey, I'm going to come up to this thing and I'm going to play a little funky kind of, C7 rhythmic figure instead of the single notes that I probably would have been doing up until that point. And that should be your cue that it's time to turn on your ears and wait for the drummer to take his little fill. And from there, we'll meander into that G, that boom, boom, do, 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 do. Am I doing the Lord's work? If I only believed in such superpowers, God, I am happy to shine a little light and share what I know, and I am super pleased actually that you're tuning in from what I can only imagine to be a pre-dawn listening session at your house out there in New Mexico, unless you've managed to make your way back to Boston from whence you hail, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, anybody got any questions about what I've covered, or did I actually do an okay job with that? Last lesson took a little longer because we did all of Help Slip and a little bit of Franklin's because there's only 3 chords there. So I'm not sure whether or not anybody's gotten around to chewing on any of that stuff. That's more of a mouthful for sure. This is pretty lightweight. Good starting there. Anyway, just been enjoying myself when I can and doing what it was. Yeah, you've got Brian. Brian is asking, is soloing in G Mixolydian. So there's 2 solos. There's a C Mixolydian and a G Mixolydian. So in this way, I kind of hear it being the sub. Thanks. I know that's what you meant. Thanks, dude. In that way is how I kind of see this as being, my band is playing this tune for a bit and helped me notice some great parts I've been missing. That's great. So the idea for me is that I view this as being in that same camp as China Cat, in that when we break to the eagle wing palace of the queen Chinese, right, and we get that. Migrate from that G major pentatonic sound to that D. Right, that D Mixolydian sound. Then we modulate up to E Mixolydian. Right. Now to B Mixolydian. Then to A, and then to D, and then back to G. You like kind of go through those things, but all parallel mode, like the same mode, the same. So D Mixolydian, E Mixolydian, B Mixolydian, right? Everything like it's kind of taking the same progression and moving it around from key center to key center. They do that there as well, but this time a little less. They just kind of from C. Ugh. I don't know if anybody can hear, but my dentist decided to call right in the middle of this, so my apologies while I figure this out. It doesn't seem to do very well when I do this. I don't understand. Yeah, I don't know. I'm so sorry, guys. Yeah, the camera cuts out when the phone rings, and I don't understand how to set that out. So Eric, I'm so sorry. So if everybody could be patient, usually I just press a bunch of fucking buttons on the phone and it seems to figure itself out. There's got to be like an actual button on here that actually does it. I want my money back. That's true. That's true. This is free, so everybody should be plenty happy. But I don't understand what gets it to stop. Hello, fucker of fuckers. Yeah. That's really upsetting. I'm so sorry, gentlemen. Ugh. Can anybody tell me what the hell to do? I mean, this is outrageous. Huh.